man, I am still rusty. Forgot to add myself to the stage. But we're back this week with Dr. Susan. I am a little bit more together this week, not immediately post-surgery recovery. So hopefully things will go smoothly. Finally got my studio set back up. So excited to be here with you this week to continue our discussion on emotional regulation, talking about regulating our own selves so that we can help our kids and teens to be able to learn those skills as well. So I'm going to go ahead and run the intro. We'll bring Susan on and we will get started.
Hi, I'm Nicole, and as you have probably guessed, I have ADHD. I live and breathe all things ADHD in my personal, family, and professional life. I have a background in psychology and special education, and I've gained a lot of knowledge over the years about ADHD, what it really is, how it touches every aspect of your life and the life of your child, as well as a wealth of information and strategies for living with ADHD and parenting kids with ADHD. In this community, we share stories, we learn together, and we support each other as we navigate all things ADHD. Welcome.
Hello, hello.
Hello. So good to see you. How's my audio today?
So far, so good. I'm not hearing any echo, so that's good news.
Excellent.
All right. Oh, we're back.
Yay.
So last week we talked about emotional regulation, what it is, why sometimes our kids struggle with it, and some tips we can use to help them through those times. Something that becomes an increasing issue for families in the summer when things just are a little bit more chaotic.
Yes.
So I guess let's briefly kind of go over what our definition of emotional regulation is, and then we'll jump into today's discussion.
Okay, let me call that up. I want to make sure I say it correctly. It's always important to have the right definition. Emotional regulation is the ability to monitor, evaluate, and manage your emotional responses to effectively navigate daily stressors and achieve your goals. It's not about suppressing or ignoring feelings, but rather experiencing them without becoming overwhelmed, allowing you to respond rather than react impulsively.
I love it. What it
Yes.
is and what it is not.
Yes.
All right. You have something you want to start off with?
Well, today we're going to talk about parents and adults. And
Yes.
I think it's so important that we're devoting a session to this because all too often we as adults think we've got this under control. And guess what? We're wrong.
Yes.
And there are so many triggers for us as adults, not the least of which is our children.
Especially when our children have big needs.
Yes. And so we get triggered by our children. And I am the first to admit that that happened to me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am, like you, a professional in the field. I was in this field for 10 years before I had my first kid. And yet I got triggered by them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I admit to screaming and yelling at my children, getting overwhelmed by them, and not practicing what I preach. And I had to learn to deal with that. And that's why talking about this today is so important because there are aspects of emotional regulation that we as adults first need to do to help control our own lives, but also because it's so important for us to regulate our emotions in order to do the job of being what I call a good enough parent.
Mm-hmm.
We can't be perfect parents.
No.
And that actually is going to be a great disappointment to so many of us because we berate ourselves for not doing a good enough job, for not being perfect. Parents get shocked when I say I screamed at my kids when they were little. I got better over time because I accepted the concept of being a good enough parent. Because making mistakes in front of our kids and then apologizing and making corrections makes us a great role model for our children.
Right.
We are human, we make mistakes.
Yeah. And I think that's the first thing that I always want parents to know is that you're doing better than you think you are,
Yes,
and that it's okay if just because you know, lose it one time doesn't make you an unfit or abusive parent, right?
exactly.
I know a lot of people who get stuck in kind of that cycle of all I do is scream, or, you know, I yelled at my kid today. I am the worst. They should just take my kids away from me. Well,
Right.
first of all, good parents aren't ones that, or bad parents are not parents that, how do I want to say this? Parents that worry about whether or not they're being a good parent are good parents.
Exactly. So well said. The ones who really are abusive, they think they're being good parents.
Right. They think they're right. They think they're doing a great job and that anything that they do is justified. If you have a moment where things get away from you and it doesn't go positively all the time, and then afterwards you feel terrible about it and you think that you are a terrible parent, you're a good parent.
Yes, because you're doing what we call self-monitoring. You're
Right.
looking at what you did, you're acknowledging you made a mistake, but
Mhm.
then you have to do the follow-up. You
Right.
apologize to your child, you
Right.
show them what you did wrong, but saying sorry is not enough. You have to take corrective action.
Right. You model that it's okay to make mistakes. You
Exactly.
know, we can't teach our kids that, you know, it's okay, you had a rough day, we'll do better tomorrow, we'll do better next time, if we are not modeling that, if, you know, everything that we do is perfectly fine. And when our kids can see that we
Yes.
lost it and they can, from their, you know, own judgment, be like, well, that wasn't okay. But
Right.
we don't acknowledge to them, mom lost it and I shouldn't have lost it. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry. And here's what I'm doing to make it better. And I'm going to do better tomorrow. Now we're giving our kids that grace to also do the same thing.
Exactly. So let's go back to being proactive now.
Yes.
Let's talk about some of the triggers for emotional dysregulation that our children might be for us. So the
Hmm.
first is when our own child has a meltdown. So, one of the things that's very important for us as adults is to realize that when our child has a meltdown, if we also get emotionally dysregulated, we can't help our child.
Right.
So, what becomes important is for us to recognize how our own children dysregulate us, how they trigger us, and that if we lose control in that moment by crying, by yelling, by storming away, whatever it is we do because we're being triggered by our own child's behavior and emotions, we're not able to help our child.
Right.
And yet, that's what our child needs. Our child needs us to be the adult. It recently came up on one of the parent support groups that I admin on Facebook that they're struggling with an interaction between their mother in law, who is neurodivergent themselves, and their child, because the mother in law is triggering the child on purpose.
Oh my goodness.
They're poking at them, right? They're saying triggering things. And then when the child loses control, the mother-in-law is saying, see, your kid is the wrong one.
Right.
And the parent is like, what do I do? And the answer, I believe, this is the answer I posted, and many other comments were along these same lines, is even though the mother-in-law is neurodivergent, they are the adult
Right.
and they are responsible for their own behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And if the adult, in this case, the mother-in-law, is not willing or able to take control of their own behavior, in order to protect your child, you have to stop putting your child in that situation.
Yeah, I think it's something we see a lot of times with kind of like the teasing grandpa too, right? Who doesn't really
Mhm.
understand that teasing when you've got a kiddo on the spectrum who's not understanding dad jokes or, those sorts of things, takes things very literally, or, just can't ride that tricky, type of
Yes,
humor that
yes.
comes with, the teasing grandpa. Um, we've had to navigate that a few times where it's like, you can't joke with him that way. He cannot handle it,
Tolerate it, right.
And so, yes, we need to teach our neurodivergent kids how to manage, something like that, teach them the communication skills, teach them how to advocate for themselves. But we also can educate our family members that like that kid is not the one that you play with in that way. If you want to, like, they're trying to interact, right? They're trying to have a relationship with this kid, but it is not working. So,
Exactly. So when we need to speak openly to our partners, to our family members, we have to set boundaries. So
mhm.
one of the boundaries we had in our house is you couldn't have tantrums or meltdowns in the kitchen. My kitchen
Okay.
is fairly small, maybe 6 feet square. And if my kid was having a meltdown in the middle of the kitchen, I really couldn't cook. My
Mhm.
kids are fairly good sized. And if they decided to lie down on the floor and scream, I really couldn't work around them.
Yeah.
And so we set this boundary: no tantrums or meltdowns in my kitchen. And they
You
would
can move 6 feet to the dining room and do it in there.
So I would literally step over them because, it blocked my kitchen. If my
Mhm.
my 5-foot kid is lying in my kitchen, I and my kids hit 5 feet, by the time they were 12,
Oh, boy.
I really couldn't cook. So I would literally take my feet and shove them, scooch them over to one side, and I would simply say, "No tantrums in the kitchen," as
Right.
calmly as I could. And they'd scream, and I would ignore them. I would not respond to whatever it was they were screaming about. I'm hungry now. I can't wait. I need food. I don't want to do my homework. I need this. I need that. And I would say, as calmly as I could, stepping over them, shoving them aside with my foot as I tried to navigate my very limited kitchen space, no tantrums in the kitchen.
Yeah.
No tantrums in the kitchen. It was the only words I would say. No tantrums in the kitchen. And eventually they'd get bored, right? Because I would not respond to their heightened loss of emotional control. They were
Sure.
dysregulated. I would refuse to get dysregulated. And eventually they'd crawl away because I was not giving them the emotional response they wanted.
Mhm.
And I'd literally take my foot and scoot them off to the
Yep.
side.
Not right here, my friend,
And
over
all
there.
I would say is, no tantrums in the kitchen, no tantrums in the kitchen, no
And of
tantrums.
course, that is predicated on the fact that it is a tantrum and not a meltdown, because
Correct.
those can be different things,
Right. So
and that they
meltdowns,
have the skills to regulate themselves in that other space. If they
exactly.
your co-regulation or you need to coach them through a
Exactly.
way
So
to
sensory meltdown,
de-escalate. Right,
when they were not under control, obviously I drop everything, I sit on the floor, I
right,
manage their sensory needs.
right.
This was I want food.
Yeah.
I need this. I want that.
Yes,
Right? That's a
both can
tantrum.
happen.
Right.
It becomes tricky as a parent to learn your kid and learn when it is behavioral
Exactly.
and when it is disability, right? And that's a whole
Exactly.
other discussion we can have.
We'll schedule a separate session for that. This was do this for me right now.
Yep.
My answer is no tantrums in the kitchen. Get out of my way. But the point of this being is just because my kid is trying to trigger me, I don't have to respond.
Yes.
This is boundary setting, and this is very healthy parenting.
Yeah. And I think, it's important. One of the most important things that we can do to maintain our regulation so that we can help our kids is to have a good understanding of what triggers us or of our own struggles, of our sensory needs, right? As a person with ADHD, I have for me, it is largely sound. Okay. I have 3 sensory seeking boys. So
My
that
condolences to you
is
all the years I've known you,
problematic.
right?
Yes, that is problematic for me because they are kids who will just blurt out random noises all the time. Like they are loud. Everything is at a high level all the time. And one
Yes.
place where this has consistently been an issue for me is in the car because now we're in an enclosed space and they're just, in the back, like literally just screaming noises all the time.
Mhm.
And so I had to figure out, like, okay, I know that this is a thing for me. Like, I can only take so much auditory input before my anxiety starts to increase. And if I'm already in an anxious space and there is chaotic noise, I shut down, right? So and that's when I have problems with my emotional regulation. It becomes a because I am just done. So I wear AirPods all day long, whether I'm listening to something or not, because they dampen the noise. When we're in the car, the day that we got a minivan that had a DVD player in it, like, listen, we all struggle with whether or not to have our kids on screens, but having them entertained in the car
Agreed.
so that they're not just blurting out noises is not only an emotional regulation and managing
Yes,
all of our levels of anxiety, but it's a safety issue, right?
I
When they're just
completely agree.
blurting out in the car. So they have their movie that they watch in the back, and I'm listening to a podcast in one AirPod, right? So I'm managing what is coming in and the level that it's coming in and the level of chaos with which it's coming in so that I can stay level enough for that. So knowing kind of what our own capacity is a huge part of this. We have to know, okay, I know I'm going to be overstimulated by this kind of noise. So how
Yes.
can I mitigate that? How can can I wear some like loop earplugs that just lower the decibels? Do I need, I'm also, it's a two-edged sword because I have to have something that I'm listening to keep the ADHD monkeys busy so that the rest of my brain can work.
Yes.
So managing what that is, right? I listen to a lot of court cases online because it is this like mellow, I don't really have to pay attention to it, but it gives me the input that I need. It kind of helps to dampen whatever chaos sound is happening around me. It's not blocking it out entirely, so I can still tell what's going on,
Right.
but it's a way
Right.
that I manage my input so that I can keep myself under control.
Yes. Well, before we go more into strategies, because I think that's super important and I have a few to recommend, I
Mhm.
want to say a little bit more about how we manage regulation and dysregulation as adults,
Yes.
because I think we don't think enough about that,
Mhm.
especially if you have a late diagnosis as an adult, for example, of ADHD or autism. which
Yeah.
has happened more often because, as we
Especially
said,
in women.
right, many women are not diagnosed until their children are diagnosed.
Hmm.
And then they say, oh my God, I've struggled with this all my life and didn't realize there was a name for it.
Right.
And emotional regulation and dysregulation can happen to anyone, neurotypical or not, maybe at
Yes.
subclinical levels. But if you have a late diagnosis of ADHD or autism, and in fact, I recently did a podcast with a lovely lady named Sarah Troy, who was diagnosed with dyslexia in her 50s.
Yeah, we see that a lot in our clinic as well.
Yes, because they didn't realize there were labels for their difficulties.
Hmm.
So I want to talk a little bit more about how we identify regulation and dysregulation.
Okay.
So emotional dysregulation can happen as a result of sensory overload, just like we talked about last week with our children. So sensory overload can happen, as you already talked about, Nicole, with noise. It
Hmm.
can happen with too many people around you. It can
Hmm.
happen with bright lights.
Hmm.
It can happen with too many tasks coming at you at once.
Oh,
It
yes.
can happen. It can happen with, um, uh, 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 my mind just went blank. For
Being
example,
overtouched,
yes, it can happen with
especially when you have
any of the
small
sensory
children.
inputs.
That was
If you
definitely
have
something I
children coming in,
experienced, when
yes,
when I was, when you have infants, when you're breastfeeding, right? Like your body is not your own. And when I had a toddler and a nursing infant at the same time, and then, I have my spouse, and that is important for us to have physical touch as well. And there were a lot of times where I was just like, I cannot be touched anymore.
it's so true. And smells. So, restaurants, for example, can be very difficult for people who are easily overloaded because there are too many smells. So, I want people to be aware that sensory overload is a trigger for emotional dysregulation.
Yes.
So, what you're experiencing might be sensory overload, but what it leads to is feelings of irritability, frustration, anger. You don't
Hmm.
realize that your anger is being triggered. You lash out at people, but you don't realize that it's triggered because you are in this period of sensory overload.
Hmm.
We already talked about how you could be triggered because your kids are being too demanding on you.
Hmm.
It can be because of sensory overload, but it can also be because, say, you have more than one kid. I have two, Nicole has three, and yet they are placing so many demands on you, as well as your work, plus your partner, plus your uh, older parents who are also placing demands on you. And if you are suddenly feeling that you're having mood swings, it could be menopause. It could be demands of all the people around you. And you suddenly feel that you can't manage your moods.
Right.
This could all lead to emotional dysregulation.
Yeah.
And we suddenly feel as women that we can't manage our feelings. I want you to all
Throw
know.
hormonal influences into that mix as well.
So, your normal menstrual cycle, that week before your period and during your period, you can be more liable to emotional dysregulation.
Hmm.
We want you to know that this is not unusual. You are not
Right.
sick. You don't need medical intervention necessarily, but
Right.
you might. You might need an antidepressant or anti anxiety medication. You
Hmm.
might need, and there is very, very strong research now in the last 5 to 10 years, that your
Hmm.
ADHD medications may be less effective during your hormonal cycle, and that you need
Yes.
to consult a psychiatrist who is familiar or willing to read this research. Your ADHD medications may need to be increased during
Mm-hmm.
the 2 weeks of the month when your hormonal cycle is being impacted, or during menopause. This
Yeah,
is
there's a lot of
very
really
strong
interesting
research now.
research coming out about the hormonal
Exactly.
impact on ADHD. I mean, we got a long ways to go in and how we address ADHD in women and identify ADHD in
Exactly.
women. But I am looking forward to seeing more doctors become aware of that, and figuring out how to navigate, with insurance and all of that,
So,
how
what
medication can be adjusted during different times of the month. So
exactly.
it's a
So,
very interesting area that I am keeping an eye on. So
yes. But what we're saying here is please speak to your psychiatrist,
yes,
not a general practitioner. We
correct.
both tell you, see a psychiatrist for monitoring these medications, not a general practitioner. And if your psychiatrist says nonsense, there's no such thing, change psychiatrist to
Yes,
someone who is, if not knowledgeable, willing to do the research, because it's very strong research now about
yes,
this.
yes.
So, what we're saying is that emotional dysregulation is a real thing. It is not just menopause, it is an interaction between your
Hmm.
hormonal cycle and your ADHD, your autism, and you possibly your depression and anxiety.
Hmm.
And it's also a trigger from your sensory overload and an interaction between you and what's happening with your child. So, this, I think, is all very important information that we wanted to share with you today about what's triggering your your emotional dysregulation, before we talk to you about non medication and behavioral strategies to help you monitor, which we'll talk about now. Did you want to add anything, Nicole,
Yeah,
before we
I
talk about
well,
strategies?
so I kind of just wanted to talk a little, gonna give a different frame of reference maybe for understanding. I like to use the term bandwidth. So
Good.
so usually when we think of the word bandwidth, we think of like technology stuff, right? So bandwidth in the computer world, the definition is the maximum amount of data that can be transmitted over a internet or computer connection in a given amount of time. So only this much can go through, right? So what
Right.
happens when that bandwidth is exceeded in your technology? Well, it can crash. It can stop transmitting altogether. It can be throttled, so it just really slows down. You might be charged more by your uh, web hosting or your cell phone if you use more bandwidth than you're allowed, right? So how does that, relate to what I'm talking about? We have a capacity, right? And that capacity can change day to day. I'm not sure how many of our audience are familiar with spoon theory. Spoon theory came from the chronic pain community originally, and they talk about, I have 3 spoons that I can use today, and getting dressed takes 1 spoon, and making breakfast takes another spoon, and now I've only got 1 spoon left. What am I going to do with it? And some days you might wake up and have 8 spoons, and some days you might wake up and have one,
Right.
on your pain level, your health condition, right? So this is where this theory kind of originated. And I think it goes well with this idea of bandwidth, right?
Right.
How much
Right.
capacity do we have at a given time to do all the things that are required of us? And what happens when that bandwidth is limited, or when the tasks and the things that are coming at us are bigger than our bandwidth? And how do we kind of manage that? Because that is where this emotional regulation piece comes in, right? We run out of bandwidth. We're not able to regulate ourselves That's when, we have our own meltdowns and we can have real issues with parenting our kids who are the immediate need, right?
Yes.
So I guess I'd like to maybe talk about what are some of the ways that we can manage our bandwidth. So it's, that we talked a little bit about that kind of the sensory piece of it, managing our bandwidth that way, making sure that we're keeping whatever input is triggering for us at a manageable level. But one thing that, we talk about is prioritization, which ADHD people are not great at, right? And we as ADHDers are really bad at estimating how much time and energy something might take. So we're not great at managing our own bandwidth, which then causes all these other issues, right? So for me, I think the first step is for us to figure out what are our non-negotiables, right? What are the things that increase our bandwidth so that we have more to give, that manage our level, that don't throttle our bandwidth, and that if all, like, they are things that have to be done no matter what. And we prioritize those things. So I like to break these into 4 categories: physical, spiritual, or whatever spiritual looks like to you, right? Intellectual, and then social and emotional.
Excellent.
We have to take care of those 4 things for ourselves every day, all the time. Sometimes we might not be able to do as much, sometimes because just time, and we can't devote too much bandwidth to it, that it then becomes taking away rather than increasing. But we have to take care of our physical needs. We have to feed ourselves well. We have to take care of our physical bodies so that, we don't have things like pain or illness that are then taking away from
Right.
our bandwidth. We've got to take care of our spiritual or metaphysical, whatever that looks like for you, whether that's meditation, whether that's a faith devotion, whether that's, any kind of practice that takes care of that piece of you. Intellectual is important. I think especially when we are dealing with tough kids, most of our intellectual learning then becomes like parenting learning, and it's not necessarily for us. Like, we're learning things and we're stretching our brains, but it's for them. Sometimes it's important for us to step back and pick a hobby or a book we want to read, or something that is just fueling us and not just reading the parenting books. The parenting books are great, but if it's not fueling you, then it's not meeting this purpose.
Right.
And then social emotional. It's the thing that has always helped me the most is when I am a social being. I am an extrovert. I need people. Now, I can be a little bit of a lot for people. So I I have to find the right people.
That's what I love about you.
Some people love it. Some people I'm a lot for, and I can appreciate that. So finding your people and making sure that you are carving out that time to feed that part of yourself is incredibly important in maintaining a level of bandwidth. If we don't take that social time for ourselves, whether that's a phone call with a family member, whether that's going to lunch occasionally with a friend, a lot of my social interaction comes from the other people that are around the things that my kids are doing. Some of my best friends are my band mom friends, right? Because that's where I find them. My husband always tells clients, find the people that like the things that you like to do and do those things together. And it seems really simple, but it could be anything. It can be it could be quilting, it could be Dungeons and Dragons, anything like that. But find
I
what
just
you like to
joined a
do.
mahjong group.
Exactly.
I haven't done it in 30 years. It was such a blast.
Like to do that thing and do that thing with them, and it will increase your bandwidth. And what happens if we don't take care of those 4 parts of ourselves is we have no bandwidth, and eventually our bodies kind of crash out on us. and it's difficult because there are those times where the demands of the family, the demands of our kids, if our kids are in crisis, then that is the thing, the only thing that we can do.
Right.
So we've got to find some of those non-negotiables. Maybe it's just maybe it's 5 minutes taking a walk to move your body. Maybe other times you'll have time to go to the gym for an hour, but getting those things in to make sure that we have an increased bandwidth to be able to manage what's going on.
Yes. I want to relate what you just said to something I know you know about, Nicole, and that's spoon theory.
Right. Yes, that's what I mentioned earlier.
Right. So spoon theory is a big part of the disability community. And what this means is basically everyone only has a certain number of spoons. It's a measure of energy to spend every day. But some things you do could add spoons back to your account, and some things take your spoons away. A little bit of spoons and big things could take away a lot of spoons. And basically, once you use up your spoons, you're done for the day. So while I was listening to you talk about your 4 categories, I'm thinking some of those things use up spoons and some of those things really add back to your spoons.
Right.
So if you take, for example, your physical and social emotional categories, those could really add back to your spoons in some ways. If you feed yourself, you take care of your physical needs, you could be adding spoons to your day because you feel healthier. You've given yourself some energy. But going out to lunch or seeing a friend, while it could add some spoons, those activities could also be exhausting because getting out of the house, getting dressed, and choosing your clothes and having to travel and being in a restaurant like we already talked about, those could also use up your spoons because it takes a lot of emotional energy to do those activities. So those activities could both add some spoons, but also use up some spoons. And while some people, a lot of neurotypical people, feel energized by having those social activities, for a lot of neurodivergent people, while they really crave that social contact, it can also use up a lot of their emotional energy and they need to rest afterwards. The same with intellectual category. Reading a book, watching a really good show, or listening to a podcast like this one, right, can really add to your spoons because you feel, wow, I learned something. And the strategies that I'm going to share could really add to your ability to have a better day because you learn a coping strategy. It can be a really positive piece that adds to your spoons. And the same with spiritual, praying, meditation, some kind of activity that adds to your peacefulness, your sense of harmony, your sense of being at one with yourself could really add spoons to your day so that you're able to work longer or maintain a social activity that you might not otherwise have been able to do. So I love your 4 categories, and it really related to spoon theory for me, because if you're feeling really down on your spoons, you feel you don't have energy to complete what you need to do, care for your children, go to work, cook dinner, doing one of your 4 categories could really add to the spoons you have so that you could complete your daily activities. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that.
So another, kind of things that when we're talking about managing our bandwidth, is knowing, day to day or month to month, maybe, what kinds of things we can let go of temporarily, right?
Mhm.
If you got a kid in crisis or something else going on that's taking up more energy, it's okay to not do the dishes. It can
Yes.
wait. The laundry can wait. Yes, the house is a mess, but we can't use up, our spoons, use up all of our bandwidth managing those things sometimes, because then it leaves us without the capacity to do the thing that has risen to the top of the priority list.
The
So,
priorities.
yeah, being willing to go, okay, these are my non-negotiables. I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to do this to increase my bandwidth, or this has to be done because, it's necessary. The kid has to go to the doctor, or I have
Right.
to do, what can we let go of to maintain, to manage that bandwidth? Asking for help or working out long-term ways to help with some of those things. Some of the things that have helped me the most with my own mental health and my ability to manage has been cleaning help, hiring a laundry service. I haven't done meal subscription boxes, but I know a lot of people who, that just
Yes.
takes that mental load of what am I going to make for dinner, doing the grocery shopping, all of that off the table for you.
Right.
Now, yes, some of those things can really be a luxury. We couldn't afford them for a long time.
Right.
But if you can make sacrifices, or I work another job for primarily so that we can afford those things, because they have become basically my accommodations, right? They've
Well,
become the
I
things
just
that makes it so that I have the bandwidth to do the other things.
right. I order my vegetables from the Misfits boxes.
Mm-hmm.
It's much less expensive, and I get a wider variety of fruits and vegetables than, the routine of
And they're
shopping.
there, they're on hand. You don't have to run to the store.
Exactly, and my diet and my nutrition is really important to me. I've got to eat a broader variety of fruits and vegetables, and I'm never going to buy 12 different kinds of fruits and vegetables at the supermarket. You
Right.
fall into a rut. But if I
Yeah.
order this box once a month, I get the variety I need. It's a
Mm-hmm.
huge accommodation for us.
So finding ways to ask for help, whether it's short term or a longer term solution. Sometimes we just need help because we're going through a
Just like
crisis
our
time, and
kids.
then
Yep.
we can pick it up later. Sometimes, like for me, that is just a long-term accommodation, because housework
We
is just not
It's hard.
in my bandwidth. It is
We
just not
think about
something I'm good at.
accommodations for our kids on a daily basis, but we
Hmm.
don't think about them for ourselves.
The housework is something that just drains my
Yes.
capacity.
So
It
true.
takes so many executive functions that are difficult for me. It comes with a lot of
Yep.
feeling emotions of,
Yep. Yep.
not being able to keep on top of it. It adds, so
Yep.
when I can offload that, then
I want
it
to bring us
increases my
back.
bandwidth.
Yep. I want to bring us back to where we started on emotional regulation and dysregulation, because
Mhm.
everything we've talked about, bandwidth, spoon theory, everything is about how do we manage our emotional dysregulation.
Right.
That is what we're talking about this whole time. I want to be sure everyone who's listening understands that.
Right.
Bandwidth, spoon theory, it's all about when we get dysregulated, how
Mhm.
do we pull ourselves back to our core state of
Right.
being emotionally regulated? It's
Yeah.
understanding the steps we have to take so that we're there to do our jobs as
Mhm.
parents, as a work person, as a wife or mother. And I want to offer in the last 10 minutes we have
Mhm.
4 quick steps we can
Perfect.
take to kind of shock ourselves back to ourselves.
Yes. So we've kind of
Right?
talked about what are things we can do
Lost my
generally
earring.
to
I'm losing everything.
maintain our bandwidth so that we have that
Right.
emotional regulation.
Right.
But
I want
now, what do we do in the moment
to, yes,
when we're in crisis, when the regulation is
exactly.
going like this?
Now that we've talked about all the big picture stuff, which I think
Yeah.
is hugely helpful, I want to offer 4 quick strategies. Oh my God, we're losing control. What do we do right now?
Mhm.
The first is box breathing.
Right.
It is the quickest way to get our bodies regulated again. Now you
Reset the
hear, take
central
a deep
nervous
breath.
system.
Our central nervous system, and also because when we're in crisis, we breathe like this. And that doesn't help us. We
Right.
need to clear the carbon dioxide out of our system. The science is clear. When we breathe too fast, we get too much carbon dioxide, not enough oxygen. Box breathing is breathe in through your nose to the count of 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath for a count of 4, 2, 3, 4. And then breathe out through your mouth. You hear her doing it like you're blowing out the candles. You should be able to hear yourself breathe out. Woo, 2,
Forcing
3.
the air out. We're not just
Yeah,
passively letting the air out.
you want to empty your lungs to get all that carbon dioxide out of your system. That's the important thing. Exchange carbon dioxide for oxygen. It helps enormously. Repeat 3 times in a row. We are exchanging carbon dioxide for oxygen. It calms your body better than anything else. But it's important. Breathe in through your nose, hold, breathe out through your mouth. The second way to shock yourself, now I call this the fake bathroom break. Your kids are upsetting you, your partner's upsetting you, your colleague is upsetting you. Say, excuse me, I need to go to the bathroom. Don't pee. Wash your face with very
I
cold
mean,
water.
pee is need to pee, but
Yeah, if you have to pee, that's fine. But I call it the fake bathroom break. Wash your face with extremely cold water. It shocks us out of strong emotions. It really works. You'd be surprised. I'm sorry if it messes up your makeup, but it actually really
put it on
works.
the back of your neck if you
Yeah,
don't
you
want to
can
put it
put
on
it
your
on the
face.
back of your neck. You can use a cold compress, but the point is very cold water. The third thing is a very short burst, 3 to 5 minutes of intense exercise. Jumping jacks, a quick run around your house or outside.
Push-ups are good. Things that use large muscle groups.
Yeah, that's why jumping jacks, running in place helps your muscles to work out tension. Very intense exercise. It's not like just a little soft, roll your neck, intense exercise. You need to
Wall
work out
sits.
tension.
Wall sits are a good one. Uses
Yes,
all those
push
leg
off against
muscles.
the walls. And lastly, relax. Stretch out your arms and legs as hard as you can. 3, 4, 5, 6, and then limp. Do it 3 times. You want to feel as much tension in your body as you can. Stretch, stretch, stretch to a count of 6, and then go limp. Again, repeat 3 times. The point is the extreme. Just
Yes.
like 3 to 5 minutes of intense exercise. Stretch as hard as you can. Feel every muscle from your toes to your fingertips. Scrunch up your face. Count to 6. Limp. Do it 3 times. The point of these 4 things is you want your body to feel extremes. You want to exchange oxygen for carbon dioxide, very cold water, a short burst of exercise, intense stretching. You want to re regulate your nervous system. You want to clear your body of carbon dioxide, which causes anxiety, proven science, and you want to get all the tension out. It will regulate your body back to your homeostasis so that you're ready to be emotionally regulated again.
Physical body. Get into your physical body.
Yes. It sounds really funny when we're talking about emotions, but when your body is under control, you can get your brain back under
Right.
control.
And it brings you, we hear a lot about grounding, right? Touch grass. Those all of things do help to get your emotions out of this frantic state and get you back into a present
Yes.
moment. These mindfulness techniques,
Yes.
we talked last week about things we do for kids that work for us too, right? Pop in a piece of gum, something strong flavor, throw an ice cube in your mouth. The temperature change can be that thing, something that
Yes.
gets you out of the emotional state and back into the present moment in your physical body.
Exactly.
Will help those emotions to come down and to work their way through. A lot of times people who are having anxiety, or they're having like I don't know what the word is for it, but they'll hold really tense, right? And it
Yeah.
just locks all that,
Shoulders.
locks
Look at those
lactic acid
shoulders.
into your muscles. The oxygen isn't able to exchange, all of those things. And that can make the anxiety, the emotion, the meltdown, whatever you're having, worse. So I have someone that I'm working with frequently, and I'll see her, she just grabs her hands like this. And I just prompt her to just keep moving, keep her fingers moving, move your arms so that all of that stuff doesn't just get stuck there, but that
Yes.
your body can process those chemicals that are coming from that fight flight reaction, from, that heightened emotional state. Your body's got to process those through. And all those things that Susan mentioned, the breathing, the physical activity, those are all ways that can help our bodies to process those chemicals and get them out of there so that we can get back to a state where we can be effective.
Excellent. Well, I'm really excited about this conversation, Nicole, because we started talking about emotional dysregulation, how we as adults get triggered. We talked about
Mm-hmm.
all these triggering things, our children, our sensory overload, all the different things that could trigger us as adults.
Mm-hmm.
And then we talked about your bandwidth and spoon theory. And so we talked about how we have to center ourselves and ground ourselves so that we can be in control. We talked about being good enough parents, not perfect parents, so that we can forgive ourselves for making mistakes. And we summed it up by talking about 4 really quick strategies we can use in moments of crisis to pull ourselves back into our body and take control again. What an amazing range of things we talked about in just an hour.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff. Just kind of one thing that analogy I frequently use, and that I have heard my husband use a lot of times when he's teaching, is you got to put your oxygen mask on first, right? When we're
Yes.
in those moments, I always think of that when I'm like, anytime I watch, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be on a plane sitting next to my kid and not immediately go to put that thing on them first, which is why they say put your own on first. Because if I've passed out from lack of oxygen, I can't help my kid. I'm no good to anybody. You have to take care of yourself first. And that is, with all of this, with managing our own bandwidth so that it doesn't impact us in other ways, in our physical health and our long-term emotional and psychological health, but also in those day-to-day interactions. We have to take care of ourselves first, or we're no good to anybody.
Yes. So true. So true. It makes such a difference to know, again, we have to be in control. We talked about how the adults are the ones who have to take control of our feelings, our emotions, our behavior if we're going to help our kids at all.
Right. And that means planning ahead, setting up good strategies to maintain our bandwidth, and also having strategies to use when we're out of bandwidth, because those moments are going to happen no matter what else we do. We're going to have moments because we're human beings. So what do we do in those moments? We've given you some great tips. If you have any other strategies that you think we should talk about here, put them in the comments. We would love to hear your thoughts, what's worked for you, what hasn't, or if you have any questions on this topic or any other topic in this realm. We want to be able to provide content for you that helps. So, Susan, let the people know where they can find you.
I've put it in the chat. I put my website, and I put my link to sign up for my free webinars that will be running all summer. I have 2 webinars: Why Smart Kids Struggle, the Executive Function Gap, and my new webinar for parents of young adults called The Independence Gap, Why Your Young Adult is Still Stuck at Home.
Oh, that's a really good one. I need to look at it. My kid's moving on, but
please,
I'm worried.
The next one, I believe, is July 1st.
Perfect. Well, thanks for being here, Susan. And then if you want to find me elsewhere to chat, I'm on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Nicole Has ADHD. So throw that in the search and you should find me. Feel free to reach out to either of us with questions, and we will not see you next week, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so you will see me next week.
And I will be back in 2 weeks.
And then we'll have Susan back in 2 weeks. So have a great week. Remember, you're doing better than you think you are.
You are a good enough parent.
You are good enough. If you're worrying about whether or not you're good enough, you're a good parent.
That's right. Just like us, me and Nicole.
Well, trust me,
Thank
we
you,
have
Nicole.
moments. It's good to see you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. This video is not a substitute for counseling, psychotherapy, medical, or mental health care. The information and advice shared here should not be used in place of any form of diagnosis, treatment, or therapy. Information provided here does not involve diagnosis or treatment of medical or mental or psychological disorders. If you feel the need for professional support, please seek a local professional in your area. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only.